All right, folks, buckle up. Today, we're diving headfirst into a topic that's been simmering for centuries: reparations. It's about acknowledging the gaping wound that still festers beneath the surface of our society. For generations, Black Americans have carried the weight of slavery and its enduring legacy. Segregation, discrimination, and systemic racism. It's a debt that hasn't been paid, a wrong that hasn't been righted. We can't keep sweeping this under the rug, pretending it's a relic of the past. Reparations aren't about pointing fingers, they're about acknowledging the undeniable truth. America was built on the backs of enslaved Africans, and that legacy has a price tag. So let's unpack this loaded term, shall we? Reparations, in essence, are about repairing the damage. See, the idea that America owes a debt to Black Americans isn't some radical New Age concept. From abolitionists like Frederick Douglass to civil rights icons like Martin Luther King Jr., the call for reparations has echoed through the decades. But here's the thing: acknowledging a debt and actually paying it are two very different things. And when it comes to reparations, America seems to have developed a severe case of selective amnesia. Politicians shy away from the topic, whispering about divisiveness and opening old wounds. The racial wealth gap is a gaping chasm, with Black families holding a fraction of the wealth of their white counterparts. The school-to-prison pipeline disproportionately funnels Black youth into the criminal justice system. These aren't isolated incidents. They're the direct result of centuries of deliberate policies designed to disenfranchise and disadvantage Black Americans. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Reparations sound expensive, but here's the thing: ignoring the issue comes with a hefty price tag too. The cost of inequality, of perpetuating a system rigged against Black Americans, is immeasurable. But before we can even begin to talk about solutions, about what form reparations might take, we need to clear the air of the thick smog of misinformation that's been allowed to fester. Because let's be real, the tactics used to block reparations often rely on fear-mongering, distortion, and outright lies. You'll hear folks claim that reparations are just about handouts, about writing checks to people who never experienced slavery firsthand. But that's a gross oversimplification. Reparations are about addressing the systemic and institutional racism that continues to plague Black communities today. All right, let's talk politics. Because let's be honest, the lack of political will is like a giant, hairy roadblock on the reparations highway. It's the elephant in the room, the issue that makes politicians squirm in their expensive suits. Why? Well, because reparations are complicated. They're emotionally charged, historically loaded, and frankly, they require some serious guts to tackle. Politicians by nature are a risk-averse bunch. They're masters of the calculated soundbite, always worried about alienating voters or upsetting donors. And reparations? Well, let's just say it doesn't exactly scream easy win in the polls. Section 2, Passing the Buck. A history of empty promises and stalled progress. This isn't a new conversation, folks. The fight for reparations has been raging for decades, with Black activists and scholars demanding justice and accountability. But time and time again, their calls have been met with empty promises, legislative roadblocks, and a whole lot of political maneuvering. Remember H.R. 40? No, not the hip-hop group. This H.R. 40 is a bill that's been kicking around Congress for over 30 years. Its goal? To simply study the issue of reparations, to create a commission to examine the legacy of slavery and discrimination and recommend potential solutions. But even this modest proposal has faced relentless opposition, stalling in committee year after year. Section 3. The courage deficit, when leaders choose silence over solutions. Look, I get it. Talking about reparations is tough. It forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about our history and ourselves. But here's the thing. Leadership isn't about taking the easy way out. It's about having the courage to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult, even when it's unpopular. And right now, we're facing a severe courage deficit in the halls of power. Too many elected officials are choosing political expediency over moral imperative. Section 4. Beyond lip service, from performative allyship to meaningful action. Now, in recent years, we've seen a shift in the conversation. More and more people, from celebrities to CEOs, are publicly acknowledging the need for reparations. And that's a good thing. Raising awareness is crucial. But here's the catch. We need to move beyond lip service. We need action. We need concrete policies, legislation, and investments that directly address the systemic inequities faced by Black communities. All right, let's talk about the elephant in the algorithm, misinformation. Because when it comes to reparations, the internet has become a breeding ground for half-truths, outright lies, and enough bad faith arguments to make your head spin. It's like someone dumped a truckload of rhetorical red herrings onto the information superhighway, and now we're all stuck in traffic, trying to navigate through the fog of confusion. Let's be clear, folks. The arguments against reparations often rely on tired tropes and dog whistles designed to play on our worst instincts. You'll hear things like, "It's all in the past," or "Why should I pay for something I didn't do?" But here's the thing. Reparations aren't about punishing anyone for the sins of their ancestors. Here's the truly insidious thing about misinformation. It doesn't just distort the truth, it pits us against each other. It creates a false dichotomy, a zero-sum game where any gain for Black Americans is somehow seen as a loss for everyone else. Suddenly we're not talking about reparations as a matter of justice, of righting historical wrongs. We're arguing about who's more deserving, who's worked harder, who's suffered more. It's a race to the bottom, fueled by resentment and misinformation. So, how do we combat this tidal wave of misinformation? Well, It starts with education, with arming ourselves with the facts and refusing to be swayed by fear-mongering and distortion. We need to be critical consumers of information, to question our own biases, and to seek out sources that prioritize truth and accuracy over sensationalism. But it's not just about debunking lies, it's about reclaiming the narrative. For too long, the story of reparations has been told through a lens of fear and division. It's time to rewrite that story, to center the voices and experiences of those who have been marginalized and silenced for far too long. All right, folks, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the way we talk about reparations. Because, let's be honest, the conversation often feels like a shouting match in a wind tunnel. Nobody's listening, everyone's angry, and the only thing getting accomplished is a whole lot of hot air. Divisive rhetoric, my friends, is the enemy of progress. It's the political equivalent of throwing gasoline on a bonfire. It might make for a dramatic spectacle, but it sure as hell ain't gonna put out the flames. Here's the thing about divisive rhetoric. It thrives on fear and resentment. It tells us that there's not enough to go around, that any gain for one group must come at the expense of another. So we get trapped in this endless cycle of us versus them thinking. Black folks versus white folks, the deserving versus the undeserving. Section 3. Beyond black and white, building bridges across lines of difference. Look, I get it. Talking about race and reparations is uncomfortable. It forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about our history, our present, and ourselves. But the solution isn't to shy away from these difficult conversations. It's to approach them with empathy, with a willingness to listen and learn from each other's experiences. Because the truth is, the fight for reparations isn't just about black and white, it's about all of us. Section 4. Finding common ground. Shared humanity as the foundation for justice. Now, I'm not naive enough to believe that a few heartfelt conversations are gonna magically solve centuries of systemic racism, but I do believe that finding common ground is a necessary first step towards meaningful change. Because when we start to see each other as human beings with shared hopes, dreams, and struggles, it becomes a lot harder to demonize and dehumanize each other. And when we shift the conversation away from blame and guilt towards understanding and empathy, we open up the possibility for real dialogue, for finding solutions that benefit everyone. Look, the fight for reparations is ultimately a fight for the soul of America. The dreaded cost of reparations. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, the price tag. Whenever reparations come up, someone's gonna start crunching numbers. Trillions of dollars, government spending, taxpayer burden. It's enough to make even the most progressive sweat. Fixating on cost is like ignoring a fire because of the water bill. The cost of doing nothing is far greater. Section 2. Beyond price tags. reframing the value of justice. Let's be clear, folks. Reparations aren't about handing out free money. They're not some sort of cosmic get-out-of-jail-free card for centuries of oppression. They're about righting historical wrongs, about acknowledging the tangible and enduring harm inflicted upon generations of Black Americans. And that harm, my friends, has a very real cost. We're talking about the stolen labor and generational wealth denied to Black families. We're talking about the systemic barriers in education, housing, healthcare that continue to limit their opportunities and life outcomes. When you factor in the compounding effects of these injustices, the lost potential, the shattered dreams, the sheer human cost becomes immeasurable. It's a debt that's been accruing interest for centuries, and frankly, it's time to start paying it down. Investing in our future, the economic case for reparations. Can we afford it? Isn't this just going to bankrupt the nation? Investing in justice builds a stronger, more equitable economy. It's like infrastructure, repairing the foundation of our society. Closing the racial wealth gap could add trillions to the economy. When Black Americans thrive, we all thrive. Section 4, from talk to action, turning policy into progress. Enough with the theoretical mumbo-jumbo. Let's get down to brass tacks. What might reparations look like in practice? A multifaceted approach addressing the legacy of slavery and discrimination. Direct cash payments, yes, but also investments in education, healthcare, and economic development in Black communities. Land restitution, student loan forgiveness, and business grants. Dismantling systems, perpetuating racial inequality. Successful models exist, from Germany's Holocaust reparations to Canada's redress for Indigenous communities. It's about creating a more just and equitable future for all. All right, folks, let's talk about a problem that's plagued many a social movement: fragmentation. A united front is crucial for justice. Imagine trying to push a car up a hill. If everyone pushes together, you stand a chance. But if everyone's pushing in different directions, that car ain't going anywhere. And that's a metaphor for the reparations movement sometimes. Here's the thing. The fight for reparations is complex. There's no one-size-fits-all solution, no magic wand we can wave to instantly erase centuries of injustice. So naturally, there are going to be disagreements about the best way to achieve this goal. Most folks advocate for direct cash payments to descendants of enslaved people. Others prioritize investments in education, healthcare, and economic development in Black communities. And still others focus on land restitution, student loan forgiveness, or criminal justice reform. All worthy causes, all interconnected, but with different levels of support and different strategies for achieving them. The problem arises when these tactical differences overshadow the shared goal of achieving justice. When organizations spend more time attacking each other's approaches than they do challenging the systems of oppression, well, that's when the movement loses its way. Look, I'm not naive enough to think that everyone in the reparations movement is going to suddenly agree on every single detail. But here's the thing. We don't need to agree on everything to be effective. What we need is a shared understanding of the ultimate goal, achieving justice for the historical and ongoing harms inflicted upon Black Americans. We need to recognize that our differences in tactics don't negate our shared struggle. Imagine the power of a united front, of a chorus of voices from all walks of life, activists, scholars, politicians, celebrities, everyday citizens, all demanding reparations with a single, unwavering voice. That kind of unity, my friends, is what strikes fear into the hearts of those who benefit from the status quo. That's what forces those in power to finally pay attention, to recognize that the demand for justice will not be silenced. Section 4. Building coalitions. From shared struggle to collective liberation. The fight for reparations isn't just about Black liberation. It's about collective liberation. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Building coalitions with other marginalized groups, we amplify each other's voices, share resources and strategies, and build a movement greater than the sum of its parts. All right, folks, we've covered a lot of ground here today. We've talked about the history of reparations, the political roadblocks, the misinformation campaigns, the divisive rhetoric, the economic considerations. It's a lot to unpack, and frankly, it can feel overwhelming. But here's the thing. As daunting as the fight for reparations may seem, we are at a crossroads. The conversation is finally happening on a larger scale, and the demand for justice is growing louder by the day. More and more people are waking up to the realities of systemic racism and the enduring legacy of slavery. They're recognizing that the fight for reparations isn't just about righting past wrongs. It's about creating a more just and equitable future for all. And that's a powerful thing, folks, because when enough people demand change, when they refuse to accept the status quo any longer, well, that's when mountains start to move. Now, I know some folks are still hesitant. They're worried about the cost, about the logistics, about opening up old wounds. And look, I get it. Change is scary. It's uncomfortable. It forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the world we live in. But here's the thing. The cost of inaction, of perpetuating the status quo of inequality, is far greater than any price tag we can put on reparations. We're talking about the erosion of our moral fabric, the undermining of our democracy, the perpetuation of a system that benefits a select few at the expense of the many. We're talking about the human cost, the lost potential, the shattered dreams, the lives cut short, all because we've failed to address the root causes of injustice. So, what can we do? How do we turn this conversation into concrete action? Well, it starts with each and every one of us. We need to educate ourselves about the history of reparations, the arguments for and against, the potential solutions. We need to talk to our friends and families to challenge our own biases, to become more informed and engaged citizens. We need to support organizations that are fighting for racial justice, to donate our time and resources, to amplify their voices and their message. We need to contact our elected officials to demand that they take action on this issue, to hold them accountable for their words and their deeds. Look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The fight for reparations won't be easy. It's going to be long, it's going to be messy, and it's going to require all hands on deck. But I truly believe that it's a fight worth having, because at its core, the fight for reparations is a fight for the soul of America. It's about deciding what kind of country we want to be. One that continues to perpetuate the sins of the past, or one that has the courage to confront its demons and build a more just and equitable future for all. And that's a future worth fighting for, folks. A future where every single person, regardless of the color of their skin, has an equal opportunity to thrive. A future where we finally live up to the ideals upon which this nation was founded. So let's get to work. Let's build that future together.